It's significant enough that it has absolutely destroyed traditional advertising agency. That's the biggest thing that's changed. Whether it's organic or paid, you have to be authentic and really connect with your customers.
You're saying once they leave, I don't have access to any of that data.
You're just not getting as many views as you used to on your stuff. You're not crazy. That's because Instagram's algorithm has changed.
What's one popular marketing strategy that everybody thinks works really well, but actually don't?
This has come directly from our Meta reps we work with, is saves, shares, and then comments. They have like a hierarchy.
What frameworks you follow in trying to put forward the best ad copy?
You can target by zip codes. We have clients that were running ads in Spanish and English, and then the Spanish neighborhoods are getting the Spanish ads, the English neighborhoods are getting the English. We can go down to if you're married, if you have kids.
I think it's just a great way to just do science on people. I know that sounds kind of twisted.
Because the algorithm itself, even if there are people that resonate with all of those different pieces of your content, the algorithm doesn't know what to do with you.
Welcome to the Ready, Set, Do podcast, where we learn from journeys of not experts who are just 2 steps ahead of us. I'm Naman Pandey, and in this episode, featured not expert is Emma Jackson. Emma is the creative director at The Idea Farm, which is a marketing consultancy that seeks to help businesses crack the code of digital marketing in today's privacy-first world. If you're a digital marketer or aspiring to be one, this conversation is absolutely essential listening. Emma breaks down for us how recent privacy changes from Apple and elsewhere have completely transformed the marketing landscape, almost forcing businesses to pivot from brute force advertising to authentic storytelling. We dive deep into why most marketing agencies are getting it wrong with their obsession with impressions, and she reveals surprising insights about what actually drives engagement, including an awesome anecdote of why a dentist's selfies outperform professional video content. In keeping with our theme of learning from somebody that's just 2 steps ahead of us instead of an expert, my goal with this episode is to highlight the amazing work that Emma is doing at The Idea Farm in this fascinating field. I want to caveat that while The Idea Farm is full of success stories of happy clients, the field by definition just makes it difficult for anybody to be an expert. This is the Ready, Set, Do podcast, and to support it, subscribe on YouTube and leave me a 5-star rating on Spotify or your favorite podcast app. There are also links in the description for more direct ways to support me. And now, without any further ado, my friends, here's Emma. Emma, welcome.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
Really excited to dig into the exciting world of digital marketing and many other related things that you do with The Idea Farm. So maybe we should begin there. Can you walk us through briefly your journey with Idea Farm so far, and just kind of how you've gotten to this point where you're in Houston now, and just how are things going?
Yeah, absolutely. So the Idea Farm is a marketing consultancy that has an execution arm. So we were actually founded by my father over 50 years ago. I think it's 52 this year, which is wild. And I never anticipated being involved in marketing, but I also never got pressured one way or the other. So in all of my endeavors, nonprofits and politics and NGOs, I was telling stories. I was building websites since I was in elementary school for fun, but I was really fascinated with storytelling. And so I would end up doing something related to media and communication. And then in 2019, my father passed away unexpectedly, and I ended up taking over the family business. And I had no idea what running a business would entail, but I did know how to tell a good story. And I felt like I had a really good gut feeling about what good marketing was. And since then, oh my gosh, the business has just grown and changed so much. I brought on an incredible CEO and my business partner, Jose Escalera, who has over a decade of experience with systems and operations, scaling companies, all the stuff I didn't know how to do. We have had a couple of different offices. We have grown and shrunk our staff. We figured out systems and operations. But our key of what we do now is we work with businesses who have specific growth goals to help them achieve that through attracting their ideal customer. So that's messaging and storytelling. And we implement that on websites and social media and digital advertising in all sorts of ways. But our key is getting our clients that return on revenue that they're looking for. In October of last year, we actually relocated, like you said, to Houston to build out our headquarters here because we were ready for a leap. We wanted to be in a big city that had this energy to it, that had this life that could really accommodate growing an in-person team. And we did a lot of research and we found out that Houston actually was a really good place. Texas is so business friendly. Houston is super international. I personally don't like winter and neither does my business partner. So that was also a nice move for us.
Yep. Hardly any better places than Texas if you're not a fan of the, American or Midwest winters, I should say.
Exactly. Our last office, as you know, was a mile from Lake Michigan, and it was really, really cold for a long time. So we've been thriving here, and we still have clients all over the US, but it's such a good, it's like a good base camp.
Absolutely. Definitely sounds like it. And there's a couple things you laid out there that have already caught my attention, especially around, you said you help clients or companies that have specific growth goals that you work with. But I guess before we get into that, I just kind of want to take a step back and maybe kind of contrast when you first started with this in 2019, what the landscape was like compared to 5 years later now. In that, I know some of your bread and butter would likely be the same, such as websites and all of that. But when it comes to social media or any other intricacies involved with that, are you willing to speak on just how a landscape has evolved over these past 5 years?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the biggest change has been twofold. One, Apple put together some massive privacy laws. So now Facebook and all of these other search engines and social media companies, they used to be able to track you all over the web. And what that meant is that you could essentially, if you had a big enough budget, you could brute force push your way into consumer pockets and you could get them to purchase things. And a lot of advertising, the quality of the creative didn't matter so much. It was just about getting in front of people everywhere you could. Well, what Apple did was they basically made it where every iPhone user, which is a lot of the US market, as you know, and then other companies are following suit, now gets the choice to opt out. They have to opt into that tracking, and most people don't. So, what that means is you only get people on platform. So, I can target you on Facebook, but if you leave Facebook, I don't really get a good idea of, like, if you haven't chosen to track your cookies, I have no idea who I'm speaking to. What that means is your creative has to be better. You can't just track people with sheer money and brute force. You actually have to attract them with the story that you're telling, with the offer. So actually, that's the biggest thing that's changed in the landscape, whether it's organic or paid, is you have to be authentic and you have to really connect with your customers.
So just a quick question on that. What you're referring to is when I first install, say, the Facebook app, it asks me ask app not to track. Is that what you're referring to when you say that?
That's exactly what.
Okay.
And that has completely changed the landscape because so many big advertising agencies, they were so used to doing things the way they were doing, and then their ad data just dropped. Their results dropped. They weren't able to get high quality results because their ads were stock photos and videos, super standard stuff. It wasn't personalized. And nowadays, consumers are so much more savvy.
That's so interesting. And I'm sure you might have an idea of on this, but what percentage of users would you say select the ask app not to track? Because there's three options, right? One of those options is just do whatever, I don't care. So do you have any idea about that at all?
I
Just
know it's
curious.
significant. I wouldn't it changes depending on the year, but it's significant enough that it has absolutely destroyed traditional advertising agencies. And they have had to pivot big time. And we've gotten a lot of clients who've come over from other agencies because they're not seeing results. And that has forced them to either drop marketing altogether and then realize that that's not a good idea, or to try to work with a partner that can get them better results.
That is so cool. So from what you're saying, it sounds like if my targeted individual will just pretend it's some individual and not a group of people, whatever they do on Facebook is still fair game. I could still target them based on the words that appear on the screen while they're on Facebook. You're saying once they leave, I don't have access to any of that data. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. So makes sense. So the only reason I bring this up is I have another friend of mine. He's based out of India. He does kind of digital marketing stuff over there. And in talking to him, he maybe he's just not aware because, yeah, there aren't as many iPhones in India as there are in the US, obviously. So that's already a big point of difference. But that's really cool. But I guess from there, that what comes to mind is, yeah, I guess how do you do that where you once you've lost your power of directly getting to your customers' pockets, I guess, and I know this is kind of a broad question, but I'm just curious as to what frameworks you follow in trying to put forward the best ad copy, or maybe it isn't a copy, it's just a visual, but yeah, in front of that person.
Yeah. So it's three components: visual, copy, and offer. Okay. And we're constantly A B testing because every community is different and every community responds to different messages differently. And so, for example, we could work with two dental practices that are the same size, but in different cities. And our messages might be completely different. They might resonate in a different way. So, our job is to put together and essentially test a wide variety of creatives, of offers, of stories that still align with our clients' goals. And over time, we figure out what really resonates with audiences. And that's how we're able to get that to work. And the other thing is attractive marketing. When you have a good offer, something that people are interested in, they're going to willingly give you their information. And so then you don't have to follow them around the web and hope that one day you'll break them down. They're coming to you and they're much more qualified when they come to you.
I see, and that refers to the cold customer versus warm customer idea, essentially, right? Like where you first show them your brand and you don't want them to do anything, and then in later successive targeted attempts, that's when you try to kind of bring them in. Is that the same as this, or is that something different?
Those are both, I mean, you essentially have your funnel. And so you, depending on our clients' goals, we figure out where they are. And some of our clients, they want to really maintain what they have. And if they're a more mature business, it's making sure that their current clients are coming back and that they're spending more, right? And they always want a new influx. But if you're a more mature business, you're really wanting to up the quality of your current clients.
Interesting.
Whereas if you're a newer business, it's like, I got to get people in the door. I don't even know what my ideal person looks like yet because I haven't had enough to figure that out. So we employ different strategies depending on the size of your business and the stage of your business.
So that's really cool. That is not something I'd considered. Are you willing at all to contrast for us just from maybe like a really dumb example about how you would approach those two situations differently? So we can just go back to your example of, dental practices and say one is, older, the other's kind of new. You're, commissioned for both. How would you approach each in that, they serve different purposes where one is to just, keep the lights on, so to speak, whereas the other is very aggressively trying to bring people in.
Okay, so the first thing is that when you are a newer practice, you need to introduce yourself to the community. Even if you, or if you're just, even if you've been around for years, we've had practices that have never done a lick of marketing and they realize, okay, people don't even know that we exist. So it would be a combination of introducing yourself and your team and your expertise and then offering something simple like a $99 new patient special. What can you do that's low cost, that is a low barrier to entry to drive people to your door? Because once you get them in and then they get to meet you and they get to meet your team and how amazing you guys are, you guys can keep them. You guys can foster that relationship. But the
Yep.
hardest part is to acquire that new customer. So that's something we would do for a newer practice is we would take content, we would tell their stories because specifically with a service-based business like that, trust is super important. So we speak to people's anxieties and fears. We talk about, is the dentist a specialist in anything? Have they gotten any certifications or gone through any advanced training courses, anything that we can do to introduce them to the community to build that trust and expertise. That's what we would do for a newer practice. For a more mature practice that has a really established patient base, usually they want to bring in those higher dollar services. So maybe they're doing more smile reconstructions, things that are $20,000, $30,000, like big projects. The first thing is you have to be willing to invest. You're not going to be able to get that kind of client without investing more money on the front end. And more mature practices can do that. And that means really tracking that experience, okay? We would do full on testimonials, before and afters. We would be really intense about targeting using the language, using people's emotions, much broader area, because we know that we're not going to get as many results as people that might sign up for a $99, new patient special and might need regular maintenance work. Those people are few and far between that have 20 or $30,000 and that are willing to spend that on investing in their smile. So that it's a little bit of a different process that takes longer and costs more money, but your return on investment is far, far higher.
Amazing. Really appreciate that deep dive. That makes a lot of sense. And then yeah, I know we're really getting into the weeds here, but every time you say something new, I just keep thinking of more new things. So when it comes to the actual ad itself here, I know there's a component where you can, at least I know this is true for meta products, but I know you can search for words that have appeared on the person's, like screen, for instance. So is that something you do? And do you just kind of try to retrace your steps back and think that if this is a person that has not heard of this company, why would they, hear of us, or what could they possibly be searching about that might make them a good customer? Is that how that works, or is that not something that is done at all? Or,
So I actually think that applies more for product-based companies and service-based companies. So if you're selling a particular product, that is the strategy we would employ to see if someone is looking up a similar product. If you're a pen company and I want to know who's been looking up stuff about pens, who's been checking out, whatever it is. With service-based businesses, it's more about emotion, about trust, about expertise. And what we will do sometimes, depending on the scale of the client, especially if they're entering a new area where they don't know their community very well, is we'll employ a customer research survey. And that survey that goes out to people, it will talk about very specifically, it will identify their needs, wants, fears, and goals around a product or service that our client is trying to offer. And with that information, we get to see the language that they use to talk about that service, to talk about how they feel, how important it is to them, what matters to them. And then we can essentially use that language to make sure that we're targeting them correctly.
so you're actually the one that does the surveys as well, essentially, right? So you get to design it and you get to kind of call the shots in terms of how you want it presented, so that when the output comes back, it is usable for you directly. Is that right?
It is right.
Wow, that is really cool. Yeah.
Well, because then you're using people's language instead of guessing, right? It shouldn't be a guessing game. It's a matter of, well, how, instead of us telling you, this is what we think should matter to you about your smile, if we're going to keep the dental example, this is what we think you should care about. If you actually take the time to ask people, you might be surprised. You might be right, but a lot of times we're wrong or we're missing something that matters more, And so, like, that's why we do the surveys. That's also why no matter how long we work with our clients, we are continually testing new ideas and new versions of the creative, because it's surprising sometimes what people really resonate with. Like, so we have a client in particular that we put out the most beautiful high-end video testimonials, but what has performed the best is he took selfies. We asked him, we said, why don't you just take some selfies with your patient? Just, like, take little selfies with your phone. And we did slideshows, carousels of him taking selfies with patients. And it performed the best out of anything that we've done this entire year.
Wow. Huh. Why do you think that is? As in, like, yeah, what dictates that? This is so curious.
Well, hindsight is 2020, so I would never have been able to predict this, but now that we can see that, it's authentic. It feels like, okay, this does feel like someone I can trust. He's clearly having fun with his patients. He's comfortable enough. They're comfortable enough with him that they're willing to get into a selfie with him. He seems like a fun guy. Okay, maybe I should go there. Maybe I was nervous to go or afraid of being judged, but when I'm with someone that could treat me like wow, well, why wouldn't I?
Absolutely. And then do you ever kind of extrapolate these ideas or findings or learnings from one industry and see if it applies to other industries? Is that something that you experiment with at all?
All the time. And the more that we've been in business, the bigger competitive advantage that we have because we have seen it with so many different industries. We have seen how the work we do in dental transfers to primary care, transfers to law, transfers to, home services. I mean, it's wild. And then on the same side of that, if you go to e-commerce, there are lessons you learn from a bakery that are different from a tool, a hardware store. And it's you start to draw parallels because at the core, we are all more similar than we might care to admit.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like such a, fascinating cross section of psychology, communication, and, a bunch of other things that have always really fascinated me. Honestly, I will even confess already, I don't know how long we've been talking, but I feel like this is something I would really enjoy doing if this was my job. You know, just I'm just getting more and more convinced that this is awesome. It's like you're being a detective while also kind of being a scientist, while also getting to be kind of like a culture commentator. There's just so much, going on here. But related question on that, do you like maintain a kind of a repository of all the clients you worked for and have all of the learnings over there? Because like maybe you worked briefly with somebody for 2 months 3 years ago, and then something that worked really well there might work with your next client, whoever is commissioning you. So is that something that just lives in your head, or how do you kind of maintain that knowledge base?
So we take meticulous notes and we have a really strong system and we have our ad library and all of our resources if we ever want to go back to something. But
Perfect.
more recently, we've started to do case studies really with almost every single client. And that gives us a time to see what we have learned, what we accomplished, and if specifically, what are the quantitative outcomes for that business as well? Because I feel like a lot of marketing, you get a bunch of qualitative outcomes, but that's not always directly tied to quant. Yeah, to what the revenue is. And so we have done a lot better job of tracking holistically where the business is at. So when we work with our clients, they truly are partners. And sometimes we've had people say, "Whoa, why do you need this information? I've never had a marketing company ask." Because we're going to ask you, we want to know what's your revenue goal for 2025? What is your current monthly revenue? How many customers do you see a month? How many customers do you want to see a month? And it's okay if you don't have those numbers, but come back to us when you do. And then if you once you track what's going on right now, we'll even help you establish those goals. Because if you're not measuring it, there's no way for us to form a partnership and to see if what we're doing is actually impacting your business in a positive way.
Exactly. Yep. And if you can't quantify it, there's nothing you can do about it, right? Like that's the first step. You need to be able to quantify what you're delivering. Do you ever have to turn clients away? Has that ever happened?
I mean, in a really good way, but sometimes you have clients who are just not quite ready for us. And we can scale we actually start at a pretty affordable price point and we have really big websites, for example, but we can build landing pages that are a beautiful entry point into the whole scene. But sometimes we have people have come to us that are they're opening a restaurant and they're saying, "Oh, I want to get things kicked off. I want to, hit the ground running with advertising." But they actually they haven't opened yet. They haven't had their first month of service yet. And we could drive people like crazy, but they hadn't even hired their staff and their office, their manager. And when we develop partnerships, we want to make sure that the money you're spending is a true investment in your business. And so if you don't have the pieces for success, same thing if we have a client that wants to run digital ads, but they don't have a website, we're going to say that needs to be accomplished first because otherwise, where are you sending people to, So it's about having a conversation and telling them we are here when you are ready and putting them in the direction of free resources, of things that they can do on their own until they're ready for us.
Hmm. For sure. Um, Similar question, kind of in the way you structure your team. So from what you've laid out, it sounds like this is a lot of work, like a lot. So, yeah, what are some guiding factors around how many people you could potentially start with and what sort of personas you need to even go to market? as a digital marketing company? So do you, I guess I'll just let you answer that.
Ooh, okay. So I actually think you should start as small, as narrow as possible in your service offerings.
Yep, just be
Thing
really,
that would
oh, service offerings. Interesting. Okay. Sorry.
and so in what you offer, it should be super narrow so that you can control it and you can slowly build out your team and you can build your capabilities as you go. Sometimes I think that people say like we're a full service agency, we can do it all. And that was the hardest thing for me to let go of because uh, you can't do everything all at the same time, and you certainly, as you're just starting out, can't do everything all at once. Now, as you grow and you build strong team members, okay, they can handle this. Our website department is solid. Let's look at opening another vertical. And then you go from if you can build it like that, great. But if you're someone like me that was like, I can take it all, like because I had my hand in everything. I had built websites, I had done a lot of writing and content, photography, videography. So very much just starting out. I was like, we can do it all. We can do it all. But what that means is you can't scale super effectively because you are pivoting so quickly from one thing to the next to the next. And especially when you're hiring people, they're going to have a hard time too because you need repetition, you need systems, you need organization in order to really get something down and get it really well. And it's only in our recent years that we have understood that. And our core offerings, like we have consulting, and then we offer three core products: website design, paid ads, and specifically on Facebook, Instagram, and Google, and website management. And then and we do have graphic design like branding kit, but that kind of falls under website. And that's what we offer. And the thing is, as a partner, we have partners with large scale media buying companies, with companies that will go in and do your social media, with all sorts of these little pieces and these gaps. And we have found partners that we trust, but we're not going to spread ourselves thin trying to do all that. So that's my advice to new, marketing and also just new business owners in general is start small, start narrow, become an expert in that thing, and then work your way out.
That makes perfect sense. Was there a reason why you left out, social media page posts, promotion, all of that? Or is that included in one of the three products as well?
So we actually, as part of our digital advertising service, we will take the content from our clients, remix it, and post on their social media page. However, that is not that's totally different than full on social media management, and that's something that we're actually going to be launching in 2025. But the reason we've held off for a long time is to do it well. It's been hard to crack the code because you need to be local. So you need to have a local presence that's actually getting content on the ground from your client. You can't do stock photos and videos, right? So you have to have a local presence. You also can't just schedule your posts and then ignore them. You have to do what's called community engagement. It's harder than ever before in the organic world to build a community. There's so much competition. The algorithms are against you. And so there's a lot more that goes into it. And we would never offer something that we didn't feel like we could support 100%. So we would rather connect you with a local creator that has the time, the energy, that specializes in going to your door, taking that content, building it out, and being your community engager as well.
So this is very interesting. And help me, just unpack this a little bit. So you're saying, we'll move over from dentist agencies, and let's say there's a study abroad consultancy, right? Let's say they're based out of Houston. They help students from America go out to the rest of the world for higher studies or whatever. Um, you're saying that for their social media management, like regularly, like with the posts and all of that, you would need somebody on the ground so that they can document what they're doing, their services. I guess I'm trying to understand what's wrong with just not taking their pictures and just using, pictures of Europe or something to market that. Are you saying that just that doesn't work? Is that right?
Yeah, pretty much. Nowadays, like that does not work. If you want to see the content that works, the creators that work, first off, people care about the people behind the brands, the team members, not so much the brand itself. Until you've actually built your brand to a point. So if you're looking at big companies, they don't have to do that because they have, but as small businesses, small to medium size, People buy from you because of your story and because of the people and the team behind what you do. And the social media part is truly a partnership because we want to know what's going on in your life, on the ground, in your business, with your customers. And if we're completely out of touch with that, social media is so quick. Trends come up every single day that, it changes. And so you really have to have someone who's on the pulse of what's going on in your community so that you can accurately connect with them.
That that makes sense. Yeah, and I guess the reason why I brought up specifically the study abroad situation was my friend that I referenced. He was talking to me about this client that he's trying to work with, and yeah, he's just not getting the results that they would want. And I think this has a lot to do with that because yeah, I looked at their page that he was helping make for them, and really it's just a bunch of like go here, there's this scholarship here, whatever, blah blah, and yeah, as you said, but there's no personal connection to the people behind the organization. Like it might as well just be a black box, which makes sense to me why somebody would not be too keen to interact with. So that's really cool. I feel like um that explains a lot. So, moving forward here, yeah, what's one popular marketing strategy that everybody thinks works really well, or some of my uninitiated listeners, such as myself, might think work really well, but actually don't.
Ooh, okay. So I think it's the overall marketing strategy of clicks, but just clicks in general or impressions in general. People love to see that their stuff was seen by people. So actually, yeah, impressions is even more dramatic of that. We will blow people away when they see that 50,000 people have seen my ad. That's so exciting. As compared to, I would much rather that 2,000 of the right people see your product or service. And so that is a really hard misconception when people want to be seen by everybody. I'm like, but your product or service is not for everybody. And the quicker you understand that, the more profitable your business is going to be.
Do you think that still tracks for, let's say, creators, or if, for instance, like I know Idea Farm does a lot of content themselves. So is that metric still not important for individual brands, or is that just for when you're trying to sell a service or a product?
Gosh, it's so important for individual brands. It's understanding your audience as well as yourself. The only thing that's really important with individual brands, and actually we tell this to businesses as well, is you need to make sure that you're not just pandering to your audience. That what you are providing is something that resonates with you, that you are passionate about. But you can't, if you notice, there are creators that will try. It's good to try out new things, but if you're consistently, I'll take TikTok for example. If you're trying to do the outfit in a day, but then you're also doing like, I'm gonna cook, and then you're gonna go on a political rant, and then you're gonna show about a video game. It's actually much harder. It is possible, but it's much harder to build a community. Um, because the algorithm itself, even if there are people that resonate with all of those different pieces of your content, the algorithm doesn't know what to do with you. And they don't know, the algorithm doesn't know who to put you in front of. Do I put you in front of the people who play the video games, or the people who cook like you do, or the people who read the books? So it's always best, same thing as I said before, to start out with your one thing and then and expand from there. And still try things out, but don't try to do a million things all at the same time.
So that's very interesting, especially because that pertains directly to what I'm doing here with Ready Set Do. I feel like what you described in terms of the algorithm just feeling, all sorts of wonky because of what's going on is probably definitely applying to me. So is there any workaround for that at all, or actually before you get there, is am I even right in assuming that, would you say?
You're right in assuming that, especially if, I mean, if your data has shown you that you're kind of all over the map. Maybe some episodes you've gotten a lot, and some episodes you've gotten like very little traction. Um, and part of that is just the nature of the beast. That's why you have to create more content and see what resonates. But for you, you're interviewing lots of different people, and you want them to be from different backgrounds.
Yep.
But you can have a general theme. What is the theme? And if you repeat the theme, okay, so maybe it's I'm looking to have authentic conversation with business owners or business leaders.
Makes sense.
Maybe it's like I'm looking to have so figure out what it is in a few sentences. And every single interview you can be with, like, because for us, we're industry agnostic. We work with all different kinds of business.
True, yeah.
And that's
That's so true. Yep, yep.
education. But we have figured out that our niche is how we serve our clients and at what stage of business we serve our clients. We are not for everybody at every time. We are for businesses that have hit a ceiling and they know they want to get over there, but they're over here. And they are willing to invest the time and the money to get there and to build a partnership rather than a vendor relationship. So for you, figure out your core message, your core theme, and bring every episode back home
Hmm.
to that theme for you.
Interesting. So it's not so much about the, you know, topic of the subject as much as it is about the hopefully consistent theme that kind of binds everything together that brings people back. And you're saying the same exact thing applies to brands as well that are trying to advertise on.
Yeah, think about some of the biggest podcasts in the world. You have Joe Rogan and Andrew Huberman are two examples of hugely popular podcasts, but they have so much variety in the guests that they bring on. And Andrew Huberman, for example, his whole thing is health and wellness, understanding the mind, understanding the body better.
Yeah,
But that's neuroscience, right? But it's like a super broad. Like if you look at the episodes and the people that he's interviewed, and also long form, he likes really long form content, deep diving. But the conversations are so diverse, but they all come back to his theme.
that's true. I wonder if, do you know if there's any exceptions at all to that? Like, just trying to be devil's advocate here and just trying to think if anyone has ever been able to do this without sticking to this central theme. I guess not. You would have to have a theme, I guess, right? I'm trying to
Well,
think.
I think a lot of times you may not have identified what that theme is. The other thing is there are creators I've seen on TikTok that they don't care. They're like, I'm gonna do me. And I respect that so much. That they're doing the political content and the cooking content and the gaming content, right? And all the things. But what they'll see is um they will eventually, if they do it long enough and they're consistent enough, you will build a community. It's all it is these tools will help the computer, the application understand you to serve you to more people. So with those creators, a lot of time what they struggle with and they share their frustrations is only like this kind of content gets seen by everybody and all my other content like nobody sees because the algorithm's not pushing it.
Right. And then you kind of have to, do a reckoning in that, do I just want to do this or do I still want to do everything else or what's going on?
So
Right.
human beings, we are capable of nuance. We are capable of understanding that you, Naman, are interested in so many different things, and you're just curious, and you're just here for it. The algorithms, though, they are not as smart. So I think it's about figuring out how to use the tools to your advantage while also being authentic to the multifaceted version of you.
I think the way you refer to the algorithm, you have a few times already in this conversation, is very interesting for, somebody that I feel is so close to it and works directly with it. I know they're different for each platform, but I'm just trying to kind of understand your rationale behind. So, so here, I'll tell you what I know about it, and then you can kind of tell me where I went astray or add more flavor. So I know that the biggest things when it comes to any social media algorithm is consistency, I think is a big one. And then there are some other things such as, help you. So make sure you have your long tail SEOs, you have like all of your relevant tags. For YouTube, do a good job with your thumbnail title. For Instagram, make sure your reels are shareable because that promotes reach more than likes and comments as such. So like let's pretend one of our listeners is kind of at my level of expertise when it comes to algorithms. What are some, hidden secrets that you've learned through your time with working on this that most people would use, you would say would not?
It changes. One, they're consistently changing. And so, two, whenever platforms publish new features, use them relentlessly because inevitably, the platforms want you to use those features, so they're going to push your content more if you're using those
Dots
features.
cut to mind, right?
Yes. So those are the two little things. I mean, no matter how silly it is, like Instagram releases the sticker feature, use it. Instagram, or like YouTube releases, yeah, YouTube Shorts, use it. And that's a way that you can kind of leverage off of what's going on. And the other thing that's, I'd say, the biggest trend I've seen is it was all about views. And now it's about engagement. It's about community. So, for example, Meta cares, and this has come directly from our Meta reps, that we work with, is saves, shares,
Huh.
and then and comments. It's so much. They have like a hierarchy because if your post is being saved to reference later, if your post is being shared to somebody else, and the comments, like, that matters so much more now than the likes, than the even than followers, because you can have a lot of followers, but if your engagement is bad, like, it's not relevant.
Yeah, you see this on YouTube all the time where there's people with, like 200K subscribers, but they only get like, 10K views per video. So yeah, as you're saying, something is not syncing there. Um,
Why do you find this also interesting?
is that not normal? Like, is that not common for, um, like just people you interact with? This is actually a good question. Yeah.
Well, I think it's often a little technical, for people, or maybe I just am too busy working with, like, people in my industry, and we already know, and I don't get to have enough I don't get to have enough conversations with people who seem really curious and actually wanna hear the the behind the scenes.
So I will confess there is a bit of a vested interest here with this whole podcast situation and such. But I will say generally, this is something that has always just fascinated me, mostly because of the reasons I was stating earlier. Because you're getting to hack into culture. That is the single biggest or coolest thing out of this entire thing. Like you need to really understand people, or you will not be a good online marketing person. Like you are doomed to fail if you don't understand people. And I just love understanding people. And I think it's just a great way to, yeah, just do science on people. I know it sounds kind of
It
twisted.
is. Yeah, no, and actually, something you just said something that really reminded me of something. So my passion is international relations. I love cross-cultural relations. I love people. I love understanding how people think in different ways, how we can connect to people all over the world. And as our company has grown, we put ourselves in a really good position to help international businesses penetrate the US market because
Oh,
it's not just about understanding people, it's about understanding the cultural context as well. And so we have gotten a chance to work with some Latin countries, some like companies from Latin America, Africa, the Middle East, East Asia, and Southeast Asia that are trying to integrate into the US market. And until they were working with us from communication strategy, they were struggling to connect to the consumers because we think differently, we speak differently. There are these little nuances that unless you grew up here, you might miss. And so we found that it's like wild, and there's also bias and there's stereotypes and all sorts of, negativity at play. And so understanding the human psyche, we can actually work with some of incredibly talented businesses that people they just haven't figured out how to communicate that they are the best at what they do and have people believe them in the US. And we get to bridge that. And that's a really cool space where psychology, meets advertising.
I'm kind of interested in exploring that just a little bit more. Are you at all able to give an example of what such a company was what they were trying to do and how you were able to?
Yeah, a good example is this summer, I guess it was maybe this fall, we worked with a super prominent Nigerian billionaire businessman and real estate mogul to bring a festival, sort of a conference into the Houston area. And we had a super short runway for this project. And oh my gosh, I would love to work with them more and do longer things.
So
But
how did you find them? How was this connection made? First of all.
they actually found us. So they had a PR, a wonderful, I love her, a publicist that is here in Houston. And yeah, we just had friends that referred them to us, and they knew we could act really fast. They knew that we could help, And so they had like some of the most incredible people that were going to be speaking at this conference. But because they weren't easily recognizable names in the US, and they didn't quite get that. Their Nigerian team was like, all we have to do in Nigeria is slap their name on anything. And then people just show up in droves. And we had to break it to them. We're like, even the Nigerian American community here may not know some of these people. We have to reintroduce them. We have to kind of educate them. We have to share what they're going to learn. And then the graphics. They have like a global team, and they had put together all these graphics, and they weren't bad, but they felt like they felt outdated, to be so honest. And then when they said, "We wanna be like these people, we wanna be like these, uh, competitors," we're like, "Your graphics, your videos, you're not there. You're not to where the cutting edge of US marketing is." And so we put together all of these new visuals that felt so much more up to date and contemporary, and that's an example of how we took the mess, and then we also educated the audience about who these people were and why you should care about them. This person started with $5 in his pocket and now runs a $5 billion real estate company. This person, blah blah blah. And it's just that little bit of cultural context that made all the difference.
So that one's especially interesting because it sounds like it's almost like a marriage of both online marketing as well as on the ground old fashioned, event management. So I didn't actually realize you did that as well. So how is that
We
different?
partner.
Oh, you
So we partner with other businesses. So and that's where it's like because we have the consultancy, our goal is to look comprehensive 360 degrees. What do you need to do for your marketing efforts? And on the ground in person is so important. It just needs to be a piece of the strategy.
And I think it works really well because if somebody goes to just an on the ground event company and later they find out that, what would be great? An online presence. So then that company can be like, well, we know just the guys for you. Why don't you call Emma over at the Idea Farm and she'll hook you up? And I bet that works both ways. You probably get this all the time as well.
Yeah. And how do you get people to sign up for events online? They hear about it online, they sign up online, and then when they're in person, you have the opportunity to really bring them into your community. So for us, it's like melding the best of both worlds.
And I bet Houston comes in really clutch with that also, given how vibrant and how just it really feels like just the perfect spot to be in if you're trying to do this type of thing. So
Yeah, there are always events happening and people are excited and ready to show up. So that's definitely the case. But you can have that happen anywhere from small towns to big cities all over.
for sure, for sure. And then just to take the conversation back, I know you're probably bored of this already, but just a couple more questions on the whole growing organically online. Um, so first of all, it sounds like what I've been told is that when you're organic, so we'll just eliminate any other um, platforms and just say, look at Instagram, right? So there's some brand that they're trying to build like a big Instagram presence. Obviously, there's two ways to do that. You can have paid ads where you just show your stuff on when people are going through stories and something comes up and they might get targeted. And then that way they can be your followers. Or you could just, grind out every day, pump out content like you were sharing. Make sure you have your personable. There's a person behind each post. It's not just random stock images, blah blah. So if a company is starting out, let's say in 2024, which and we'll just say that they have a reasonable ad budget. So they're not this is not the company with the deepest pockets in the world, but they're reasonable. They're willing to spend whatever they take. And their goal is to it's a service-based company. So their goal is to, yeah, both twofold, like just put the name out there while also attracting some customers. So I guess which way would you prefer? And I know that's still pretty broad, but I'm just trying to understand what are some specific cases where ads or paid ads would be a better idea than just trying to grow organic.
Yeah, you need both. So nowadays, it used to be when you open Instagram that whoever was in your community, you would see their post. And it was a timeline. So whoever had posted the most recently, you would see it right up front. Um, Things have changed a lot. Instagram has leaned into pay to play. They would basically, if you've noticed before, if you've been posting on Instagram for a long time, and you notice that you're just not getting as many likes. Or if you post reels, for example, you're just not getting as many views as you used to on your stuff. You're not crazy. That's because the Instagram's algorithm has changed and they are really encouraging people to pay, right? So we strongly recommend building a strategy that combines organic and paid so you can maximize what you are doing. And so to do that, for example, short form video content, specifically on Instagram, it's reels. That is where you want to be predominantly living. Now, when you do full on advertising, people don't realize Facebook has a lot of tools that make it simple for anybody to run ads, like boosting a post.
Yeah.
Those are not, that is like taking a megaphone out to the street and saying, "Hey guys, look at my post." And you don't know who's walking by and you don't know if they care at
So they don't let you target
all.
those. That's just for
Not from boosting and there's even like, it's so ridiculously limiting, and we have clients who are like, "Yeah, I've run ads." And I'm like, "No, you haven't." And we have on the back end, it's like the business.facebook.com. You have to build a business manager, build out the ads manager. You have access to everything. We can target by zip codes. We have clients that were running ads in Spanish and English, and then the Spanish neighborhoods are getting the Spanish ads, the English neighborhoods are getting English ads. We can go down to if you're married, if you have kids, if you're a woman, if you're over the age of 55, I mean, you can get so granular on top of that. If you already have a customer list, if you already have an email list or whatever it is, we can upload it and say, okay, I want people that look 99% similar to these people that also live in this specific area, and that's who's going to see the ad. So it's wild the tools that you have. Long answer. The short answer is we would put together video content targeting your ideal customers, but we'd also encourage you to put out a posting schedule that's pretty regular, to develop partners that can share your content, to figure out what are the community partners where you guys can build each other up together and swap audiences so that you're essentially tackling the organic and the paid at the same time.
that makes sense. Are you at all, or actually, really, yeah, just the last question here before I let you go. But are there any specific type of clients that you just get annoyed with a lot, or are just inherently for no fault of theirs, but just kind of a pain to work with? I don't know why. I feel like there must be something. Every industry has this, so I'm just curious. What's the version for your industry?
Yes. Okay. So we have a type of client that exists in the world that no matter what, if they don't see it, they don't believe that it's working. So we have a client that loves a billboard because why? They can see that billboard every day they drive down the road, even if that's not leading to direct conversions on their website. On top of that, if we're running Facebook ads, it's amazing what having one person coming in and say, "Oh, I saw you on Facebook." They're like, "Yes, it's working." Um, and if you don't get that verbal response from people, or they're like, "Oh, I don't remember. I looked you guys up," and they might say, "This isn't working." And we've actually had clients who have stopped working with us because they say, "This isn't working." Their numbers plummeted. 3 months later, they come back being like, "Oh no, we need help. Like this is not working. We need to figure it out." And then we got their numbers back up. So I think it's those clients who want to directly, especially if you're in a service-based business, if you're e-commerce, we can directly attribute every single sale, right? And we've gotten so much better at attribution on marketing for services as well. But there's still going to be people that maybe their friend told them about you, but that wasn't enough. They had to see you talking on Facebook. They had to, get that email that and like you had to lead nurture them, right? So it's for us, the hardest type of client is the one who's like, but how do I know that they came from you? You know?
That, yeah, that does not sound like the ideal experience for really anybody to work with. But we'll leave that at that. But I want to thank you, Emma, so much for taking the time today and really dropping this masterclass on all things considered, all things pertaining to online marketing. I feel like I've learned so much, and I know I could probably keep going for another hour or two, but for the interest of time, and also because, as you said, I should stick to my theme, which is around an hour long conversations, not too little, not too much more. I will let you go here, but again, thank you so much for taking the time, and I really appreciate you.
Absolutely. And if anyone wants to learn more about what we do or reach out, we do offer free consultations and want to dig into businesses, you can find us at www.theideafarm.net. And yeah, we'd love to hear from you.
And just for anybody listening, I will also drop that URL in show notes and descriptions and anywhere, so it's easy for you to find without any issue.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time. I'll talk to you soon.
That brings us to the end of episode 42 of the Ready Set Do podcast. Thank you for sharing these episodes with those that continue to benefit from them. If you would like to support me, the easiest way to do that is by subscribing to me on YouTube and leaving me up to a 5-star rating on Spotify or your favorite podcast app. Please check out the links in the description below for more direct ways to support me. I've been doing this for a while and somehow not a single person has decided to buy me a coffee, which I'm slightly offended by. Catch you all in the next one. New episodes every Wednesday.